Yep, it's saying we're live, but before I bring my guest up, excuse me, I always like to go check Facebook. And if by some chance you're watching this and you think I want to listen to it on podcast, you can find it later in about an hour. It'll be on all the podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, and all of that. So let me go over here and check it on Facebook to make sure it's saying that we are live before I waste my guest time because he's a pretty busy guy. And I've already messed up once today with the time of this thing. So I want to make sure I get it right after this. Yep, we're all good over here on Facebook. He's been real gracious with his time today. Hey, thanks to my sponsors, the Barn Nursery, Alchemy Med Spa, Vascular Institute of Chattanooga, rentmyequipment.com, Optimize You Chattanooga, and Granite Garage Floors of Chattanooga. I know all those people personally. They do great work. All right, so I was introduced to this guest through DeMarlon Dean, a buddy of mine who has a podcast called 91 Watt. I don't say it like DeMarlon does because he gets frustrated. He puts a lot of emotion in 91 Watt. I just say 91 Watt. And DeMarlon's a former police officer. He brings other first responders on and they share their experiences. It's a great podcast. I have a lot of friends that are first responders in the military, and this is always a topic that I know that they talk about amongst themselves, and it comes up every now and then with me, and it's basically PTSD, how to acknowledge it, recognize it, heal from it. It's a great story. Let's just bring him up. He's written a book called Building Grit. It's Nick Wingo. 321. What's up, Nick? How you doing, sir?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I am good, man.
We got a little echo.
Can you hear me okay? Hey, stay right there. Let me refresh it since we're live. Hold on. Let's see if this works. About being live.
There we go.
How's that? Is that any better?
A little echo.
If you want to click out and click back in, man, I don't want to spend 30 minutes with it uncomfortable. Click out, click back.
That's okay. I'm not sure why it's echoing. Maybe it's mine.
Tell me if you change anything, and I'll reset it.
Let's see. I only put my headphones in. Maybe that'll help.
Okay. Yeah, everybody needs to go check out DeMarlon's podcast, 91 Watt. It's a great podcast. And then we'll get into Nick's story here in just a minute. Once you get him connected, let me know so I can refresh it so it'll hold up over here.
All right.
All right. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, it's just me echoing.
Hold on one second. I can handle it. We're gonna try. This is why I love live podcast. Are you okay now? Is that any better at all?
Let's see.
Check.
It's still echoing. That's all right. Let's just roll with it.
I'm okay with it, but if by some chance you want to click out and click back in, I promise it won't kill it because once it goes out audio, I can always cut this part out, man.
Okay, yeah. Let me just try to click out and click back in.
I'll click you out, click back in, and we'll just kind of go from there. Anyway, so we're going to talk about PTSD. Nick is a former firefighter. He was a firefighter for a long time. He started having some issues. I'm going to let him tell his story when he comes back up. But like I said, I know a lot of first responders, police officers, EMTs, firefighters. I've got a lot of friends in the military. And this is something a lot of them struggle with. And it goes kind of unspoken and not talked about a lot. 3, 2, 1. Let's see if this is any better. Nick, is that any better?
All right.
Check.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm not hearing any echo now.
There we go. Look at there.
Perfect.
Now you don't have to suffer through 40 minutes of, oh my God, I can't hear myself.
Well, just hearing myself over is like, say something and repeat it.
Yeah,
great.
I've been a guest on podcasts where I've had that same issue in the past. Okay, so I was kind of setting up a little bit as you were clicking back in. Just you were a former firefighter. You wrote a book called Building Grit. We're going to talk about that again later. But because of time, and I know it's Sunday afternoon, do me a huge favor. Tell everybody your story, why you became a firefighter, when, and then I'm going to start asking some questions, and we'll just pick this thing apart.
Great. Sounds great. I just want to, thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate you bringing me on. I really appreciate the ability to share my story because I really believe that it will help other people realize that they're not alone in their struggle, that they're not alone in this difficult thing of post-traumatic stress, and that it's okay to say that I'm not okay and that I need to get help. So I really appreciate this opportunity. My name is Nick Wingo. And I was a firefighter for 18 years. I got into the fire service at the young age of 18. It was something that I didn't really realize that I wanted to do, but it's something that just kind of fell in my lap. I was going to join the military and had a few things happen that didn't work out for me to join the military. And so I went to school to get my firefighter one, my EMT basic, and became a resident firefighter. And from there, I had a fairly short career compared to some people, but a very difficult career. I lost several friends to suicide. Half of one crew that I worked with for 3 years. One guy fell off a roof and landed on his back and killed him instantly. Another guy from that crew, he got a brain tumor, started having seizures, and then committed suicide. And so I've witnessed a lot of carnage. I've witnessed a lot of death. I've witnessed a lot of just terrible things. And it really started weighing on me. And I came into the fire service at a time when there was still not a lot of help with mental health. It was not something that was really talked about. Critical stress debriefings were still not really a thing. Those are just now starting to become a thing in the past 10 years, really. But really, the past 5 years is when those things have really started to become like, hey, let's talk about this stuff and let's really get some people in to help you and work through this stuff. The problem is that my whole first part of my career, I got taught to just kind of shove it down and not talk about it and not share it with other people. And so then that became my tendency. And then the story I would tell myself is that if I share how I'm suffering, that I'm not fit for the job,
Mm.
because someone who shows their emotions and shows all the crap that's deep down is someone who is not strong enough to do this job, because that's just part of the job. It's just accepting things as they were and just continuing to get up and continue to move forward, because there's no time for sadness or anger or all those emotions, because there's people's lives that are at hand. There's things that need to be done. And I took my job very seriously. To me, I was never somebody in the firehouse who played grab ass. It was not my style. I was somebody who was very driven, somebody who really cared about people, someone who was compassionate about saving lives. Because to me, I was being paid to do a job, and my job was to help people in their worst moments. And it was important to me, and that's really the compassion I had is what led to my severe post-traumatic stress.
Well, and I think I'm listening to you, and I think with the combination of being even nowadays, the expectations of being a guy, right? We don't show emotions. Now you've got a job that reinforces that, on steroids. You're like, now you really can't show emotions. I'm listening to you, and I think I wonder how many of my friends have gotten really good at shoving things down at their job, but they're not really good at the things they want to be good at, like being a dad or a husband or a wife or a friend. And it's almost like you've got to sacrifice being good at the other stuff over time if you don't learn how to process. Does that make sense at all?
100%. I mean, that was my biggest problem areas was my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, and honestly, still to this day, there's struggles because of all the wounds and all the pain that I created of not sharing my emotions, sharing my feelings, and being open and honest with where I was. And so it's caused a lot of damage that I'm still working to heal.
How old were you again? Were you 18 or 19 when you became a firefighter?
I was 18 years old when I got into the fire service.
Do you remember, it may not be one thing, but do you remember a time on that timeline of being a firefighter when you realized you were in for more than you expected? Like, oh wow, well that's going to stick with me tomorrow.
Yeah, first thing in my career, really. I was maybe 3 months into my career. We had a child that passed away, and we got back in the engine. And the officer on the engine said, "Well, that sucked." I said, "Yeah, it did suck." And then he said, "Unfortunately, this is just what we signed up for." And that was kind of the extent of the conversation, and never nothing after that. And I
There's
realized
no
in that moment,
debrief or anything.
no, I
No.
realized in that moment, like, damn, man. I didn't really realize that this is what I was going to be dealing with. And so it was just a consistent of that in my career. And so I learned from that time forward that this was just part of the job. My understanding this was part of the job. This is part of what we do. And we just learned through our own will to work through it. And when you're 18 years old, you don't have full frontal lobe development. You don't have full frontal lobe development until you're 26 years of age. And so you have no ability already to process your emotions fully as it is, and all these frustrations. And then on top of that, you just stack thing after thing after thing after thing after thing into your brain. And it really just I mean, it just does a toll on your frontal lobe, on your ability to process emotions, your feelings, and all that stuff. And so I had gotten to the point in my life where I had just complete disconnect.
How long were you a firefighter?
Right at 18 years.
That's a pretty long time, man. That's a pretty long
Hmm.
time, especially when you had your first experience where it was a little more than you expected that far back into the career. I've cheated. It's called some people call it research. I call it cheating. I went and listened to a couple of the podcasts you've been on. So some of my questions, you're going to be like, either he's been stalking me or he's listened to a podcast or two. But there was I just because I want to talk about the healing part, so I want to get into that a little quicker because I want people to have some tangible things to take away. You started your healing process really, you didn't have much of a choice. It wasn't like you came to an epiphany and you said, I'm going to take a step out. You were pushed in that direction, weren't you? I love this story
Yeah.
because looking back on it, you can be pissed in the moment, but looking back, it was kind of a blessing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was pissed off at my partner. So the way it happened is I looked at my partner one day and I said, "Hey man, I'm having nightmares. Can't sleep. Sleeping 2 hours a night, maybe if I'm lucky. I'm having a rough go." And he went and told the captain. The captain came and said, like, "Hey, you got to take a day off." And my first thought was like, "Cool, I'll take a free day off of work. You guys want to give me a free day off of work? I like time off from work. Perfect." Little did I know that I was really struggling. I mean, I knew I was struggling. I just didn't really realize to the depth that I was struggling. And I went to my partner and I was pissed off at him that he told on me. I mean, I let him know how mad I was about it. So it's not, you're right. It's not something I wanted to do. It was not
What?
by my own will.
Well, paint that picture. Excuse me. Paint the picture when you say you weren't doing well, and I know we've alluded to relationships, but give us a little more. Paint that picture a little better of what the symptoms were. What was it? What was your life looking like when it comes to at the fire department, on the job, at home, and just in your head in that space?
Um, you know, just feeling like my whole life was imploding around me, feeling like I wasn't good enough, feeling like I was failing in every area of my life, constantly pissed off at everybody, constantly mad at everybody else, constantly mad at my situation, mad about going to work, mad about coming home. I mean, my kids would do something just even to the slightest, and I would just blow up, and I mean, my poor kids, they're just kids. They don't realize what they're doing. And I'm getting so mad about things. I'm driving so mad about people's inability to drive. I mean, I just was so elevated all the time, all the time.
You say you got one before you came on. You said it's easy to get caught up in yourself when you're in that area, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
getting in your own space where I don't know if it's called selfish. You were there. Is that a selfish space or is it everything processed through how this affects you space?
I think it's both. It's
Yeah.
both being selfish and being a victim, right? You're a
Mm.
victim to your situation. You're a victim to all the things that are happening to you. You're a victim to all this stuff. And when you're in the victim mindset, you're continually down a really bad path until you step out of the victim mindset and say, "Hey, I'm going to do something about this and change something." Then you're just going to be stuck, right? I mean, how many people talk
Yeah.
about being stuck? If you're thinking to yourself right now and you're listening to me and you think, "Man, I feel stuck right now," you may not like to hear this, but you're a victim. You're a victim to your situation. And so I'm sorry if that hurts. That means that you should probably evaluate where you are and what you're doing.
Well, I've got a question coming up about that. Where's it at? I wish people could see my notes. I look like I'm writing myself 40 prescriptions because I write like a doctor and I've got all these notes around me and then I lose them in the conversation. All right. So I want to back up because you told your partner, he kind of told your boss and they gave you a day off. You went to your partner, you were a little pissed off, like, man, what are you doing? I thought we had this little understanding, which is code basically, right? We can share amongst each other, but that's it.
Right.
Where did it go after that?
From there, I mean, that was, that I left. Well, the first night they just took me off the medic unit and I slept at the fire station because I said, "Look, I just need a good night's sleep. I just haven't had sleep. I just need some sleep. If I get some sleep, I'll be fine." And then I woke up the next day and the chiefs were there. And so they took me offline and they said, "Hey, you got to go get help. You got to get evaluated." Okay, cool. I'll go get evaluated. Like, and I went in, I get drug tested and alcohol tested right away, which I thought was bullshit. So they tell me I have to go, and then they want to. I'm like, okay, whatever. You guys want to drug test me, and like, whatever, test me
Y-
away. Good for
Yeah.
you. I mean, in my mind, I was kind of like, screw you people. So you take me offline, and then you're gonna test me for drugs? Like, really? Come on. But then from there, it was just a downward spiral. My dad died after I got taken off, 6 weeks after I got taken offline. I had a whole bunch of other shit happen, and then I ended up in treatment. I ended up in treatment because my suicide ideations came on so strong that I just couldn't. And I knew from my friends passing away, from suicide, that I couldn't. I didn't want to go there because I knew what that looked like, and I knew what it did to their families and their friends, and I just didn't want that for me. And so I knew I couldn't do it on my own.
Mhm.
So I said, I threw the white flag up, and I said, Mercy, I need help. And I went to treatment. So,
Did you lose? And again, I'm this being podcast. You can always do the next question. You don't have to answer any of this. But did you lose some friends? Did it change the way people looked at you? Because in my world, I'm outside looking in when I talk to my friends. My dad was in the military. I look at all these. It's almost like one of the reasons I think people don't go get help, whether it's PTSD or just, especially us guys, counseling, is we're afraid on how we're going to get viewed and the stigma that comes with it. Was it different for you when you started going through therapy?
no, I mean, I lost so many. I don't even know that I have friends really, other than a few couple. There's a few guys that I worked with that I still talk to, but the vast majority have talked not good about me.
Mm,
And especially now, because I have written a book, and I have gone out and, not just laid down. And so there has been, and I'm very vocal on social media. So there has been a lot of negativity from people with the fire department
what does
that,
that mean, vocal? What does that mean, vocal on social media?
I'm just, I just really speak of where I am and what I'm
Oh,
doing. And I get out there and I post daily, and I say, like, hey, this is the stuff I'm going through. And, I think some people, I think often people think I'm doing so much better than I am because of my social media and how I post. And the reality is I struggle every day. Like, there are struggles every day. I'm just putting the stuff out there of positivity because that's what helps me. Because
mhm.
I realize, like, every time I'm in a negative mindset and I speak negatively over myself, that's what I get. I get more negative and more crap. And so my one of my things to help me hold accountable to positivity, um, and to pushing forward, is to put out positive things and put out things on social media and say, like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm struggling. These are the things I grew going through, and this is what I'm doing to work through it. In a hope that, someone will see it and go, ooh, I'm struggling too. I can do these things as well. And I've had people reach out and say, thank you. Thank you for what you put out, because it helps me. It helps me in where I am.
So you went through this treatment. Was it like a live-in treatment, 30 days? Was it just going to how did that look before you got out of that? And what does it look like now? Are you still going to a counselor, or is it more of some self-taught stuff that you brought away from that experience?
So I spent 35 days at the Center of Excellence in Maryland. And that is a facility that I am really grateful for. I have several friends that have been there. Actually, I have a buddy who's in the Center of Excellence right now. Um, but it's a facility specifically for firefighters who are struggling with post-traumatic stress. Excuse me.
Mhm.
um, and uh, and or substance abuse. And I spent 35 days there. It was a pause in life. It was an opportunity for me to go, hey, number one, am I doing with myself? Where am I going? And number two, a self-realization that I just was not in the state of mind to go back to the fire department. And so while I was there, it was the decision was made with my doctor, but it was not. I couldn't go back, and that in itself was a battle. I mean, when I went to apply for my disability, I had three doctors say three different things. One of them said I wasn't disabled, that I should go back to work. One of them said that I should go, temporary disability with a reevaluation in 3 years, and then the other one said that I was permanently disabled. And the FPPA cited and said that I was permanently disabled. So it's been a battle for me. It's been a battle for me from the day. I mean, I got taken offline by somebody, and then I had to fight through all this crap. The thing with the city, there was a lawsuit with the city. It was a mess. It was just The whole thing was a mess. It was not fun. It was terrible.
You know, so it's amazing. You have this framework when you start a podcast. Do you do a podcast as well?
Yeah, I have a podcast to do with my wife now.
Okay, but so you then kind of know what I'm about to say. You always have this frame of how podcasts are going to go. Then you get into it and you're like, well, now it's going to go different directions, or you start thinking about it. And so I had a friend who was going through marriage counseling, and he was trying to save his marriage. He went to 2 or 3 marriage counselors, and he stayed with a marriage counselor until it really got hard, and then he quit because he wanted to say he was going to counseling, but he really didn't like the accountability part of it. And it sounds like you went through that in about 35 days. It sounds like there were moments in there where you were like, I'm glad I'm here, and then at the same time, I'm pissed I'm here. So you go through this process. You have this big fight with the fire department. Is there any part of you at that moment, or is it more reflection now, where you go, we can do better than this? As far as I'm just talking about as a country and a community. If you're the people running up onto a scene first, seeing carnage at its worst, before it's cleaned up, before it's blurred out in the newspaper on the pictures they can't show, you're seeing up front. Those folks should be able to go to some sort of counseling without there being a stigma attached to it. At least that's what I'm listening to and thinking of. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you?
It
Is
is.
that something you've approached?
Yeah, this is something that's changing in the fire service right now. The reason it's changing is because people are finally standing up and saying like, "Hey, no, this is crap. This is not the way it should be. This is not right." I mean, I have a friend who works in California right now. Currently, he's on his 5th day mandated to be at work. He's been working for 5 days straight. I mean, when are we going to do something for the firefighters who care for us, who are there for us in our most desperate times? This the stuff that's happening, the friends that I'm witnessing going through the same stuff that I just went through. I have right now, I have 3 personal close friends who are going this through the same thing with the fire department, fighting to get disability, fighting to say like, hey, I can't go back to the fire department, and like, what do I do now? Suicide rates in the fire department are so ridiculous. First responders in general, really, the suicide rates are astronomical. They're so high, it's ridiculous. And we're not like, in fact, there are more suicides for first responders than there's light of duty deaths. Yet we spend
Mm.
hours and hours and hours on research on these line of duty deaths. I mean, there is 50, 60-page papers that are written when a line of duty death happens. Yet suicides, like, we're just barely touching the surface. I mean, we're just offering counseling, and even the counseling is hard to get. It's listen, when I was going through this, my wife reached out to try to get counseling to go through it. I couldn't get anybody to call her back. I couldn't get anybody to call her back and help her out. I mean,
So your
so
wife
it's
was
just so
going through
it's
counseling for her.
yeah. She
No.
was looking for counseling. So we're told that there is counseling available for both us and then our spouses.
Mhm.
But the reality is when it comes time to do that, it's not that easy to get the help that you think you should be able to get. It's just not there, right? And then a
Mm.
lot of the help sucks. Honestly, a lot of the
Tell
help
me
is
how you
just
feel.
crap. It's just, I mean, it is. I mean, they're doing the best job they can. A lot of these people have really good hearts. Some of them are just not equipped to be
You,
counseling
I've got
us.
a friend that went to the VA. He's a little older in life, and he wanted, when he was talking with someone about the PTSD, he specifically asked about the second or third counselor they gave him, was like, "Hey, have you ever had any combat experience?" He goes, "I would like to talk to somebody that knows what it's like to be shot at." And that made a big difference. Again, good hearts are great, but he needed somebody that when he said something, they knew when to be quiet and let it sit in silence, and then they knew when to talk. And when, you know what I'm saying? Does that make that
Yeah,
makes sense? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
100%. Absolutely.
All right. So you get out of this care. You have your fight with the fire department as far as, are you disabled? And I know you're kind of still in the process of this now, but what now? Where did your journey take you as far as the healing goes with the family and with you? What are some tools that you started using that you were like,
Yeah.
I don't care if people think this is weird or not, it works for me.
Yeah. So this is, honestly, this is something that a lot of people, there's really controversial still is when I got out, is that I went and did psilocybin treatment and I went out and did ketamine treatment. Those were the catalysts to get me off pharmaceuticals. I was on so many pharmaceutical medications, it was unbelievable. And they just made me feel so suppressed, right? It just they weren't
Mhm.
really helping. They were helping me in the sense that they were keeping me from blowing up or being in deep sets of depression, but they were also preventing me from feeling like happy and joy and all those emotions as well. And so, one of the things that not a lot of people talk about is when you're on the pharmaceuticals that are meant to keep you like this, you never have the ability to have like the happiness, right? Yeah, it
Yeah.
keeps you from going like this. It also keeps you from going up,
Yeah.
right? And life is meant to be in ebbs and flows. We're meant to have ups and downs. That's just the way it is. Nothing is linear. Nothing. Everything is in constant movement. And so w those make you in this. The medications make you this, right?
Right.
And so I got out of those, and now I'm back in that flow of the ebb and flows. So that's where it started.
I don't want to go backwards too much real quick, and I want you to keep going, but didn't this wasn't your depression affecting your testosterone and physically other things? Did you go get that checked as well? Because I hate to break it to everybody, if your hormones are out of whack, so are you.
Yeah, my testosterone is still something I'm dealing with. My I have so many issues that have arose in my body because of my sleep patterns for the last 18 years of my life. I've got a long road ahead of me to really continue to work through this stuff. And yeah,
Gotcha.
hormones are a major problem. They're a major issue. It's still something I'm figuring out. I honestly, I don't even know right now. There's times where I'm like, I don't even know what to do with it, because even testosterone, like doing testosterone can cause you issues,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
All right, so I interrupted because I think it's a big deal, especially for guys. If you're over 35 years old and you're dealing with stress and tired, I just know on a personal level, you can blame a lot of things. You can call it old age, you can call it depression, you can call it circumstances. A lot of times, it's just you need to go have your hormones checked because if they start getting that more in line, then all of a sudden you may have some energy and strength to go fight the other fights you need to fight. And so that's why I think the testosterone kind of intrigued me when I heard that in the other podcast. But so some of the stuff you were talking about, the ketamine, the other treatments, pulled you off the pharmaceuticals, and then there's other stuff you do that I've noticed too that help you.
yeah, so the big one for me is breath work. So after I went and did those treatments, they were great. They helped to stabilize me in the moment. But I realized that I needed something that I could use on a daily basis to continue to move myself forward. And so I bumped into breathwork, going out and searching for anything I could to help me. I started out with Wim Hof breathing, which
What
is
is
a
that?
series. It's Wim Hof breathing. Wim Hof is the Iceman. He's the guy that owns the world, world record for sitting in cold water, and he's like hiked Mount Everest in shorts and no shoes. He's crazy. The
Yeah,
dude's nuts.
yeah. Okay,
Um,
now I know who you're talking about.
yeah, so I started doing his breathing, and it was great. I actually had asthma, and my asthma started clearing up. I don't have asthma at all anymore. I'm healing a lot of my inflammation in my body is beginning to heal because of my breath work. But then, like once I started doing the Wim Hof, then I started getting deeper into breath work, and so I started learning about conscious connected breath work, which conscious connected breath work helps you to dive into subconscious mind and actually reach states that are very similar to psychedelics. They reach the same type of states, the same type of deep diving into subconscious mind. What happens is that what you're doing is that you're shutting down the default mode network in the brain. And so the psychedelics, breath work, what it does is it reduces the blood flow to the areas of the brain where emotions or feelings, all that stuff lives, and it shuts it down and gives us a time to kind of just quiet them. And when you quiet them, then you can have other stuff arise and just witness what's inside you.
All right. So is it a pattern of breathing? Because I've done box breathing, like in the morning, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds hold, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds hold, that kind of stuff. But is it, can you kind of explain it a little bit to me on what that is before I go Google it? Because I will
Yeah,
Google it after this podcast.
absolutely. So, I've done several breath works. The one that I'm leaning into most right now is called Soma breath work. I actually went to Ibiza, Spain, and learned from the guy who started Soma breath work. His name's Niraj Naik. He is the one that produces music for Wim Hof. I spent 9 days with him, and that breathing is rhythmical breathing to music, like a four breath in and in through the nose and out to the mouth, and then it leads into an inhale and an exhale into a breath hold, where you go in a breath hold for anywhere 2 to 5 minutes, and then a breath in and another hold, squeezing your mula bandha, the pelvic floor, and sending the energy up your spine, moving the cerebral spinal fluid up the spine, and then releasing with an Om chant. And so vibrating the belly, the chest, and the face, and then
Dude, I'm
just doing
so
that.
looking this up. I'm so looking this up. Just know that over the next month or so, you're going to have a guy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, trying to do that because that sounds. I'm a big believer in breathing. I think
Mhm.
we forget that that's that how we're supposed to breathe. A lot of us breathe shallow just through our chest, not through our bellies anyway. And
That's the one of the biggest problems we have is that we're meant to breathe down in our belly, not into our chest. So that's one of the first things I teach people about breathing is that if you're breathing into your chest, you're really missing out on all the things you can be doing with your body. I mean, there's so many studies right now around our breathing and how much our breathing affects everything else in our life. All the other disease and all the stuff we have, a lot of it is just because you don't breathe right.
So you've done the psychedelics, you've got this breathing. Anything else specifically that you're doing to help you navigate? Because, like you said, you still something you still struggle with, and how how has it helped you in your relationships? And are you still into counseling? Is your family into counseling? Bring us up to speed on where you're at currently as far as that part of it goes.
Yeah, right now I'm really in a struggle right now. Honestly, 100% struggle. So I went through a phase where I was doing a lot better,
Mhm.
and right now I kind of with my wife specifically, we're in a phase where this is why we're doing our podcast. We have our podcast is called the Walk as One podcast, and we're sharing with people our current struggles that we're going through because so many marriages are suffering and they have so much stuff going on, and nobody's talking about like there's you hear the people from all the people who are like doing so great and whatever, but not the people that are going through the struggle. And so we're in a struggle right now, but that's okay. It's all part of it. My big thing right now is my morning routine. It's pretty regimented. It's breath work. It's time with my wife. It is time in the sauna. It is cold therapy. Um, it is meditation. It is getting out and walking. It is working out. There is a lot of that stuff that needs to happen. If it does not happen, I have problems consistently. Um, there is counseling that's happening. There is counseling with my wife. I am in men's group. I'm in a men's group where I go and do shadow work, inner child work. 3 times a month. I am consistently every day doing something to work on my continual struggles. And so this is going to be a lifelong thing for me. This Once you start this work, there is no stopping this work. Because if you stop this work, you're going to end up right back where you were. And so when you commit to this, you have to go all in. And the people where they fail is that they start the work and then they quit and they just
Mhm.
end up right in the same place they were before. So I'm sorry, it sucks. It's just part of it. It is what it is.
Well, I've said this to you before, but we came on and went live. One thing I'm learning as I get older, and especially through podcasts, because I talk to people from all different, from culture to politics to entertainment to business, is we all struggle. We all have to pick our pain. You can have the pain of staying where you're at, and that hurts, right? Because I'm stuck, and it comes with a lot of emotion and stress and loss. Or you can have the pain of healing, and that sucks. It comes with a lot of pain, emotion, and loss. And you almost just have to pick your pain in life. And I will say the pain of healing. I can't speak to the PTSD part of it, but the pain of healing overall brings the opportunity for so many more of those up moments that you were talking about. And so that's kind of a good exchange. I'll take that exchange. I need more up moments, and I'm appreciate you being transparent about where you're at now. One of the things though you're doing, and I'm assuming you're still doing it because I've been on your website, nickwingo.com. You're still trying to help other people that have gone through this, whether it's your book or one-on-one calls. And now you're starting, it seems like, to do podcasting with your wife about the relationship side of it. So do you feel like this is a way for you to take that pain and turn around and just give it back to somebody else to help out?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things right now that I've been doing is I actually do the soma breath work on Zoom 3 times a week. I do live sessions, and I got to tell you, to be able to share this work with people, and just hear them and with the releases that they're having and the experiences they're having through breath work is phenomenal. I mean, it feels great that I'm able to provide an experience for someone that they can do and have the same experience as I've had. And so there is something special about sharing with people, working with people. I've done men's retreats. I have a men's retreat coming up here soon. I did one in August. It's just some of the results that I was able to work with men and see them get to. It just felt great for me. Felt good for me to be able to share with other men and help them to see what they couldn't see within them. And so yeah, just helping people is, that there's so much joy in that.
Yeah, my hope is that someday the police departments, the EMTs, the fire departments, and I know the VAs do it now a little bit, but I would hope they would start reaching out to people. It doesn't have to be specifically you, but people like you that have gone through the system and the process and have almost been spit out on the other end. I would love for them to pull people back in like that and say, hey, okay, let's take you back when you were year 2 of the fire, being a fireman, year 7. What is stuff we could do to prevent the Nick that ended up having to leave? You know what I'm saying? What can we do to get in
Yeah.
front of that young guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's starting to happen. I think that they're doing it their own accord right now. They haven't really brought in people who have actually been completely out of the system. Um,
Yeah.
but hopefully that'll change. Hopefully that'll change.
Well, it seems to me it might, because um, having people in the system have gone through the system and exited, through retirement's one thing, but having somebody that has had the adverse effects of it now going through the healing prospect, there's a perspective there that I think can be valuable. It's just like in a business, right? I need the input for people that loved my business, and I need the input from people who didn't love my business so I can make my business better.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. 100%.
all right, let's get some advice to folks, man. We've painted a good picture, and I appreciate you being transparent. But let's talk to the guy or the girl out there that's struggling. They know they're struggling. They're not sleeping. They're temperamental. They're pulled away. They're isolated. They may have seen things that we aren't really supposed to see on a consistent basis. Let's give them some advice, and then if you've got advice for the family members, that would be great too. And that's kind of how we'll before we leave, then me and you're going to play a little game, which I always do with all my first time guests. So
All
it's a
right, perfect.
surprise. Yeah.
Awesome. Um, you know, if you're listening to me right now and there is anything that has resonated with you, you have something that you have an opportunity to self-evaluate and look at. And so just hear me and understand that I understand that you're suffering, and I understand that you feel like you're alone, and I understand that you feel like there is no hope, and I understand that you feel like the world is caving in around you. I'm here to tell you, you can choose to stay in that place, or you can choose to change it. And I know that you know, because if you are a first responder, you're likely to have had a friend or someone close to you who has gone down the path of not choosing to change. And that leads to suicidal ideations, which leads to your death. And that's a hard, crappy fact, but that's where it leads. And so you get to choose. You get to choose where you're going and how you're going to handle this. And I care about you, and I see you, and I understand you. And so please, for you, for you and your well-being, set your ego aside, set all the stuff aside that's holding you back for asking for help, and receive help from the people who care about you and love you and want to help you, because they're not against you, It may feel like they are, it may feel like they're after you, but I promise you, it's your own stuff that's in your own way. You're standing in front of yourself and you're blocking yourself from the help that you need. So, hear me. Step up, do the thing that's going to help you get out of it.
How about the family members? Anything you want to say to them? And if you don't, that's okay too. Just anything you
Yeah.
want to give to
Um,
that husband or wife or friend out there that may be wanting to know how to help.
just understand that the people who you love the most, they don't even realize how they're affecting you. They can't see it. They're completely blind to it. They're so caught up in themselves and the stuff that they have going on that they can't understand you and they can't hear you, and you're just causing them more frustration. And that's okay. The best thing you can do is just love them, provide for them what you can, and just say, "Hey, I'm here for you and I want to help you in any way I can." And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to realize that they're just not ready yet. But don't quit on them. Don't quit
Mm.
on them because they are worth it and they can get out of it. They just need maybe somebody else to say something to them. So, just bring things to them that you say like, hey, maybe this I saw this thing, maybe it'll help you. I don't know, this is not judgment from me, I'm not judging you, I love you, I care about you, and I've just noticed these things, and I noticed that you're hurting and suffering, and I just want to be there for you in any way I can. And ask them, how can I be there for you? How can I help you? What is it that you feel like you need? Right,
Is
also
that?
set your
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. I mean, when you say on your website, book a call, do you help other people going through stuff like this? Is that what that is, or is that more for podcasts and stuff?
Yeah, no, they can book a call anytime. If you're struggling and you don't have somebody to talk to, please reach out to me because I will set an hour aside to talk to you if you are at the point where you are ready to do the deed. Because I
Yeah.
have lost too many friends now to suicide to just sit back on the sidelines and just allow this to happen. And so if you're someone who you don't want to talk to a counselor, you don't want to talk to your family, and you need somebody to rap with, I am more than happy to meet with you because I don't want to see you do the thing that a lot of my friends have done.
Yeah. Okay. All right, man. I appreciate you jumping on. I've got at least 4 or 5 other things that we could talk about. I'd love to get you back on and maybe dive into some of more of the treatment stuff you're doing, and we could probably do a 30-minute podcast on the breathing and the psychedelics and the meditation part of it. So maybe another month or two down the road, I could have you back as a guest. But if you've got a few minutes, man, I'd like to play. It's only one, two. It's only 4 or 5 would you rather things, but I do it with all my first time guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it.
All right, because it's been kind of a serious podcast. This will be a good thing. Oh, tell everybody the name of the podcast with your wife again, because I did not know
Yeah,
about that.
it's called the Walk as One podcast. So it's the number one, not one spelled out. So Walk
Okay.
as One.
All right. So go check out his podcast. Go look up his book, Building Grit. And he can also find out more about him at nickwingo.com. Hey, if you could only eat one for the rest of your life, pancakes or waffles?
Waffles for sure.
Yeah, good
With
answer.
peanut butter. I gotta have to have some peanut butter with it though.
Okay. Well, you had the almost people don't know that there's no right or wrong answers, but the right ones agree with me. Anyway, I would go with waffles, but it's just because it has the little squares, catches all the butter.
Fair.
Yeah, I never had them with peanut butter though.
Yeah, that's my jam. Peanut butter and berry syrup. That's my favorite.
Oh wow! All right. If you could only take one vacation for the rest of your life, are you going to the beach or mountains?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Mountains.
Oh, okay. Are you a podcast? Are you a book podcast? Do you listen to stuff or do you read stuff? Which one do you like the best?
I like to listen because I have so much stuff going on that it's good to listen when I'm driving or that type of stuff.
All right, last 2 questions. You can only have one the rest of your life. French fries, onion rings, or tater tots?
Onion rings.
Okay, wow. All right. And then this is it. If you could give up, or if you could only be one, would you rather be a professional actor, a professional singer and entertainer, or professional athlete? Which one of those 3?
Okay, so I'm a professional athlete,
You can only be
professional
an
actor.
actor. Yeah, an actor, a singer, like a entertainer, or an athlete? Which one of those three? Which one of those would you rather be professional at?
You know, I would say probably an actor.
Oh, see, I thought you would go with athlete. You're a big guy. You have some
I
football
am.
experience.
Yeah, I've let that part of me go. That was the alpha masculine, need to be the best at everything, and I don't need that anymore. You
So,
know,
if you were an actor, what kind of actor would you be? Is there a certain movie you like to be in?
I'd
That's
be
a
the
good
crime boss for sure.
the
I'd
crime.
be the crime boss.
Okay, are
Yeah.
you a Netflix binge watcher guy?
I don't watch TV, honestly.
Ah, there's a show called Peaky Blinders, which is about being a crime boss, which is Netflix. But if you'd be the crime boss, you would like that. All right.
Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, maybe so. Hey, listen, thanks for taking the time on a Sunday. This will be out on all the podcast platforms here in about an hour. And then again, if you're okay with it, we'll come up with a couple other topics we can dive a little deeper on. But this has been fantastic. NickWingo.com if anybody wants to find out more. Thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. Best wishes, sir. Bye, everybody.